So Louis Bartoli wanted to scare away visitors to the circus, so Mr. Faraway had no choice but to sell it to him. Here's your look at the new NECA toys. This is Toony Terror's It's Pennywise the Clown. Bring the fun of Saturday morning cartoons to your horror collection with these adorable little creeps. Pick your favorites or collect them all and make every day Toony Terror time. To get this review underway, the first thing we're going to do, didn't mean to startle you, by the way, by saying that. The first thing we're going to do is measure off how tall Pennywise the Clown stands. 5.8 inches is the answer I would be able to provide you, the members of the mob. Switching that over to centimeters, you're looking at the figure standing almost 15 centimeters tall. 14.8 to be exact. This would certainly seem like a good time to do some scale comparisons. So here are the other Toony Terrors that we had to look at. There's Freddy Krueger, very tiny Freddy Krueger, and then there's also Jason Voorhees. They are all very unique to one another, although I have to admit, just between you and me, of the three, I think Pennywise looks a little bit more rooted in reality. I don't think he's as cartoony as perhaps the ones on either side of him. The creepy clown comes included with an orange balloon. What's interesting about the orange balloon, though, is if you look at it, and the other balloons that we've looked at before from the various different Pennywise the Clowns from NECA toys, they've actually got the wire running in the middle. Normally, it's always been off to the side, where the knot's kind of been in the front, and then the wire's been in the back. Just a little observational note that I picked up myself and felt the need to mention it to you guys. It's just interesting that the wire runs completely in the interior of the balloon. Okay, we'll stop talking about that. It's a wire frame, though. It's a wire white frame, and it fits into his hand. Sort of is the same problem as all the other Pennywise figures that we've had a look at. When you initially get it and you're trying to put it through his fingers, it always is the same thing that ends up resulting. It's the little wire, the rubber cap that's around the wire, ends up kind of unraveling or bunching itself up. So you'd have to try this a couple of different times. And I found one trick to this. If you find the wires bunching up too much, you can also then take a pair of clippers, little nail clippers, and just clip off the excess, whatever is bunching up to you. Now, I've also noticed too that you could take like a very small screwdriver and just kind of work that hole open a little bit more, because ultimately as a result of it, wasn't bunching so much up until I started hitting the record button, and now it seems to be a problem. But it does fit into his hand. You saw at the beginning of this review, it did fit into his hand. But again, it's just a bit of an issue where you just have to, I suppose, be patient with it. Don't rush the matter. And eventually it does fit into his hand, but I'm just going to probably have to clip, I think, that end piece off and start that again. When eventually it does get into his hand, he does hold it. I'm kind of perplexed as to why I'm having so many issues getting into his hand when I wasn't having issues before. I'll probably, again, just take a little bit of clippers and clip that off, and then I'll just try that again. The record button got the better of me. Anyways, we're eventually getting the balloon in between his two fingers. The way his fingers are placed, it does cause the balloon to kind of tip to the side, just because there's some extra weight there. You can kind of rectify the issue by just bending the wire inward, like that. But it still is going to be something that the balloon is going to sway back and forth on you. It looks good. I mean, all the Pennywise figures that we've looked at have come with a balloon. But they've all ultimately had the same problem. Feed them in between those two fingers, the thumb and the pointer finger to be exact. Again, it's a nice accompanying piece. It's one of those things where if you don't display the figure with the balloon, it kind of asks the question, what exactly is he doing with his fingers? It's almost like he's looking at it from a distance and he's pinching people's heads. I squish your head, I squish your head. So like I said, he does come with the balloon, and we'll just, for all that effort and trouble, we'll just take that back out of his hand. And just again, to show you, No pressure, no pressure, no pressure. Just to put it into his hand. Don't push it down, perhaps not like I was doing before. Just twist it. And just twisting it like this will eventually get it into his fingers. There we go, just like that. That would have been dire if I had done that and it gave me the same problem it gave me before. But like I said, it does fit into his hand. You may want to just bring the balloon a little lower. I think that might be kind of an issue as well, where the balloon won't, see, kind of sway back and forth. Let's go ahead and just bid fond farewell. I bid you adieu, balloon. We're going to put you to the side. And we'll look at Pennywise the Clown. Now, don't get me wrong. I love the Toony Terrors, and so far I've really liked Jason Voorhees and Freddy Krueger, but there's something jarring about perhaps Pennywise. I left the movie one for the last because I think it's the superior figure of the two different clowns. While I do like this one, I think it looks a little bit too much, perhaps, like his movie counterpart, the miniseries counterpart. Scooby-Doo is an example of what we could probably base this universe from. Has had a couple of clowns, actually. And the clowns I noticed in the cartoon were, if you compare it for this one to those ones, I feel like they probably could have turned the cartoon dial just a little bit higher than what they ended up doing right here. What we ultimately get is we get a cartoon representation of Pennywise, which really is what it is. But then if you compare it to, say, Freddy Krueger, for example, it's Freddy Krueger, but you know it's Freddy Krueger from a cartoon, or at least it looks like Freddy Krueger from a cartoon. This actually just looks like Pennywise if somebody was drawing it like a cartoon. And I guess the two can't really be separated from one another, and hopefully that makes some sense to what I'm talking about. I wonder if some of it can be chalked up to his eyes. Now his eyes are triangular, but I might have even made those eyes a little bit bigger than what they ended up doing right here. I think that is where this figure, I don't want to say falls flat, but I think that's where it feels like it's a little bit more realistic than some of the other Toony Terrors. I want a more exaggerated eye. If those eyes were really wide open, I think that would help to make this look a little bit more like something you would naturally have seen in the cartoon. Because really, like, outside of that, everything else of it, of the same mold, not same mold, but the same coloring, and the same design of his outfit, doesn't look that much different from the mini-series version of Pennywise the Clown. So I don't know if I'm necessarily finding fault to it, because it's actually a really nice-looking figure. I just feel like they probably could have turned that dial. If the dial was, say, on 5, I would have even turned that all the way to about an 8 or so for making it a little bit more dramatic. Even like if you look at Jason Voorhees, let me go ahead and just grab him for a second. Jason Voorhees has, of course, the mask, but even like, as I mentioned, with the eyes, you can see that the eyes are a little bit more expression, something of which you would not normally expect to find a real hockey mask being able to meld it and bend itself, so it would actually work around the eye area there. But there's something, again, about Pennywise. If you look at the two, one looks a little bit more realistic than the other one right here. So I think I would have probably, like I said, just made those eyes just a little bit bigger. The mouth is good. Good dark coloring around the tongue. The lips are done in red. Even like the teeth has slight discoloration along the top section of the gums, and even like the bottom section there as well. But I think what's missing it for me, again, last time I'll mention it, is the eyes. If the eyes were just a little bit bigger, I think that would have worked quite well. The figure, unfortunately, the way it's sculpted, and it doesn't seem like it has foot articulation, but it does lean to the side. And that doesn't help also when it's displaying it with the balloon, because then you've got the balloon kind of tilting to the side, you've got the clown kind of tilting to the side. I guess they were kind of going for something as with, like, almost as if the Pennywise is holding down a balloon to a bunch of children, and maybe that's why he's kind of leaning off to the side. I might have maybe straightened him a little bit, or at the very least given him a much more exaggerated pose, even more than this, because it kind of looks like he went for a straight pose, and then he's just like slightly leaning to the side. The coloring actually, like I said, the coloring is good. The face I like, not going to mention it again, but the bright colors of the yellow, the orange, you got the dark, kind of dark navy blue, and then you've got the stripes of purple and alternating green. Comes together really quite nicely on this particular piece. I think, though, of the two, even though we really haven't opened it up and examined it yet, from what I've seen, I'm thinking I'm liking the other Pennywise the Clown probably just a little bit more. For articulation on this guy, head rotates all the way around. When you are rotating the head, it sort of has the same problem as the regular miniseries Pennywise, the Ultimate Pennywise, that the ball joint is very bulbous, and when you are rotating the head, it's prone to popping off, at least for me. It's a simple fix, just pop that back into place. The head hinges up and down, rocks back and forth just slightly, and then you can rotate the head all the way around, but you can kind of see what ends up resulting from that. The arms rotate all the way around as well. Now, these could have possibly also been hinge joints. I think I would have really liked hinge joints on these, but ultimately they're just resorting to swivel joints, rotating the arms all the way around, and you can also rotate the hands individually all the way around. This arm is kind of in the same way as Jason and Freddy. The arms being out as it is, I mean, it kind of lends itself to the fact that the clown is kind of being playful and, you know, like I said, he's showing off the balloon. But, I mean, moving the arm, anything other than that, again, it kind of looks like he's serving a dish, perhaps, of spaghetti again. Or if you, like, move the arm down, it looks like he's saying you have to be this tall to ride the roller coaster. I would probably not be riding on that roller coaster, FYI. The feet, I actually expected them to have articulation too. And sadly, that's not the case. He does have a peg hole in the underside of his foot. He doesn't come with a display stand. So far, Freddy is the only Toony Terror to actually come with a display stand. This one doesn't include one. But I guess you could make use of, if we grab like one of the NECA clear stands, just has a universal peg, a peg hole, so you can attach that to his foot. I don't think that the figure necessarily has issues where he's going to fall over, despite for the fact he is leaning a little bit to the one side. I guess this would just only lend itself a little bit, I guess, if you want to keep them all consistent with one another. Even though technically Freddy Krueger comes with that black stand, you could swap it out for the clear stand. You could have all the 4 figures on clear stands if you wanted to go with that. But as it stands for Pennywise, as it stands, I see what I did right there. As it stands for Pennywise, though, he stands perfectly fine with or without a display stand. Of course, like the other Toony Terrors, Pennywise the Clown also comes included with a backdrop. This is just located on the back of the card where the figure is. It's on the back side of that. You just cut that out, follow the dotted lines. You probably could do a little bit better job than I did. And you've got yourself a little bookshelf from the library that you could display with the figure. And while I wouldn't necessarily think library instantly when I think Pennywise from the mini-series, at least it's a nice little diorama. This is kind of something I would be reminded of, like a Scooby-Doo episode in which the bookcase would slide open. I think even it was the first episode, if I'm not mistaken, with the creeper, and he was actually hidden behind the bookshelf. Something, again, you could display with the figure. Sadly, though, once again, there is no standee. I guess you could easily source out something from comic book stores. I think there's like HeroClix, or there's a line of figures that come with like a little standee, or you could probably even source out standing clips for like cardboard playing figures from board games. Probably would use the exact same type of stand. Just plug that into place. It's a bit disappointing that unfortunately it didn't come with the figure. But you could easily just attach it, I suppose, to, you know, if you have a shelf, you could put the figure in the front, attach that to the back wall, or you could do what I'm doing right here, lazily. You could just lean it against the figure, and you've got yourself an instant diorama. The Scooby-Doo Where Are You classic episode of Bedlam in the Big Top, the gang encounter a ghost clown. Of course, back in the day when this is Scooby-Doo Where Are You, they're never really ghosts. Instead, they're usually people disguised as something that wants to scare away tourists or visitors to that location. Ultimately, the ghost clown ended up being Harry the Hypnotist, who vowed revenge against Mr. Barnstorm's circus. Hopefully not giving that anything away to somebody who has not seen the classic episode. But I mentioned that one because it's got a really neat designed clown in it. And being somebody that doesn't really like clowns, you can imagine when I was younger watching that episode, how the clown kind of freaked me out. I kind of wish that NECA Toys could have taken some cues from that design of the ghost clown. That clown, granted, was in red. It didn't have the bright, colorful colors that perhaps Pennywise had. But I think the exaggerated features is something that I'm liking so much about Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees that I don't get as much the vibe from for Pennywise the Clown here. Granted, yes, he looks like a cartoon version of the miniseries Pennywise, but he doesn't look as much like a character that would inhabit the world of Scooby-Doo like the other 2 characters that we had a look at. Maybe exaggerated shoulders, a narrow waistline, and maybe exaggerated eyes could have helped make this one feel a little bit more like it could inhabit the world of Scooby-Doo than what it actually does. If you manage to pick up this figure for yourself, let me know down below in the comments section what you guys think of the Toony Terrors Pennywise the Clown. Do you feel it could still fit in to a world, a Hanna-Barbera world? I always like reading your comments down below. Of course, we're going to have a look at the movie version of Pennywise in the next video. Sort of gave that away. But if you guys are new to this channel or longtime viewers, maybe just never got around to it, make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. Swing on over to the overly creepy looking circus. It's been abandoned for years. I probably wouldn't be venturing into that. But make sure you turn on that bell notification and then run quickly out of there so that when future videos are coming onto this channel, you'll never miss out. And like I said, we're going to have a look at the Toony Terrors Pennywise, the movie Pennywise, in the next review. So stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys next time.